Welcome to a brand new episode of Cult Movie Tuesdays right here on Night Owl Video. I'm Stephanie. Thanks for tuning in again today. And on the show, this episode, I'm talking about one of my all-time favorites. And I honestly like this series. I'm starting off with all my favorites, which might be I don't know, good or bad, but these are the ones when we're talking about like After Hours and this one, River's Edge from 1986. These are like some of my earliest memories of going to the video store and renting movies on my own, and this one stuck with me. Uh, all these years later, it still has a great impact on me, and I really enjoy it. So I'm going to talk about this film today, River's Edge, and I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't yet subscribed, consider clicking the subscription button and click on the bell notification so you can keep up to date with the channel. And be sure to make comments if on any of the movies I'm talking about. If you have strong feelings either way about any of these movies that I'm talking about, I would love to hear from you. So go ahead and leave a comment. So today we're talking about River's Edge. This is a film from 1986 directed by a person named Tim Hunter. I looked up Tim Hunter's filmography to see what else he had done, and I don't really recognize, with the exception of maybe one. He did a film called Over the Edge, and the one I think I sort of remember is called Tex, and that, interestingly enough, is also based on a story by S.E. Hinton, who you may recall from my review of Rumblefish, which was also written by S.E. Hinton. Tim Hunter also directed episodes of Law and Order, Twin Peaks, Mad Men, and like his TVography. Is that a thing? I don't know. His work is mostly in TV. But yeah, like I said, I think I remember that movie Tex. Maybe it also had Matt Dillon in it, but I also could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that. River's Edge is a crime drama and also a cult film, in my opinion, from the 80s. It stars Keanu Reeves as Matt. Of course, we all know who Keanu Reeves is. He's a little cutie right here, from The Matrix and John Wick and all those big movies. But before that, long before that, he was just this little kid in these little indie movies. It also stars Crispin Glover as a character named Lane. Of course, some of you probably know who Crispin Glover is. He was in Friday the 13th Part 4, the Charlie's Angels, the early 2000s Charlie's Angels movies, Back to the Future, obviously. And then it also has Dennis Hopper as a character called Feck, F-E-C-K. Obviously, we all know, do we all know who Dennis Hopper is? I feel like we do or should. Obviously, his big breakout was Easy Rider, Blue Velvet, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It also has a person named Daniel Roebuck, who plays John. Now, you may not recognize that name right away, but he was one of the police officer detectives in the 1993 film Fugitive with Harrison Ford. He's also been in a whole bunch of Rob Zombie movies, including the first two Halloweens that Rob Zombie did. And this also stars a very young Joshua John Miller as a character named Tim, and he was also in Halloween 3 and Near Dark. And yeah, so he plays the one of the younger characters in this film. So this film is really dark. I'm not gonna lie, like it's at the time was considered very dark and controversial, and kind of highlighted maybe what some people thought were some of the problems with American youth in the 80s. It had a lot of dark subjects for the time. There's a lot of teenage alienation. There's alienation from the teenagers' parents. There's murder. Yeah, there's murder in the movie. It's obviously like a coming of age. And like with a lot of 80s movies, I think like there was this common trope of like the absentee parent, or the parent that just wasn't really involved in the kids' lives. And in this movie, it's hyper present, especially with Keanu and Joshua John Miller's characters. Their parents are the moms are working. I think she must be. I think she's a nurse. I feel like she was wearing like a nurse's uniform in the movie, and then they have like a stepdad who they don't get along with, and then there's a little sister, and she kind of is just totally neglected, and then it's the two brothers who are, you know, seemingly the sort of like disconnected youth in the 80s that they're off doing bad stuff and listening to heavy metal and stuff. Um, so I didn't know this until I was researching this movie for this review, but apparently the screenwriter, and I hope I pronounce this right, Neil Jimenez, there were a few cases going on around the time that this film was being written that actually mirrored the story. And so Neil Jimenez sort of took some he didn't it's not like a true story, this film, but like he did take some kind of cues and inspiration from some of these real life stories and included it in his script. um, yeah, so like I said, this isn't like a true story or anything. I'm going to get to the synopsis in a minute, but I'm just going through some of the production stuff first. So also interestingly enough, the character of Feck, which was given to Dennis Hopper, originally the director wanted John Lithgow and Harry Dean Stanton, but they both turned it down. I think they probably would have, especially Harry Dean Stanton, they probably would have made um, good versions of Feck, but Dennis Hopper by far, I think, really took the cake in that character role, and I think it's just because he was so quirky in that time. And then the character of Tim, where did I see that? My notes are here. Yeah, so Corey Haim, who you may know from a lot of 80s films, was originally slated in the role of Tim, and he actually started filming the movie and then developed pneumonia and had to drop out of the film. So I think all of those actors would have made a very different movie. I mean, I think the ones they ended up getting really did a solid performance and made the film what it is, but it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you're like a nerd like me. I sort of like try to imagine what the film would have been like with these other actors and actresses, but kind of interesting. Upon its release, this film was very divisive amongst critics. Um, some distributors didn't even want to touch it. I think I read something like at one of the screenings there was a distribution company there, and they wouldn't even talk to the director after the film. They were just like, nope, not doing it. It did eventually get picked up by Island Pictures, who bought the distribution rights, and it was released theatrically in 1987. So I say 1986 is when it was filmed, 87 was when it was released. Um, and at the time it was released, apparently a lot of critics even referred to it as a contemporary horror movie, even though it's definitely not, in my opinion, a horror movie. It's definitely some horrible things happen in the film, but I think they were kind of like leaning on like John, the main character, being sort of a real life monster. Um, but anyway, the film got great reviews. Gene Siskel included it in one of his top 10 movies of the year. The score was by a person named, again, the name Jürgen Knieper, and the soundtrack also included a bunch of great heavy metal and punk bands, including Slayer, Fates Warning, Agent Orange, and The Wipers. This DVD I think this is the one. This is from 2002. It was released in 2001 as part of MGM's Avant-Garde Cinema series. And then in 2015, Kino Lorber re-released it. I don't know much about that edition. I assume it's probably like a super edition, super special edition. But anyway, this is the one I got. This is actually the second time I've owned this. I bought this when it came out in 2001 or 2002, and I got rid of it in a purge. And then I recently picked it up, I think last year, the year before, because I just had kind of an urge to watch it again. So the film follows a group of teenagers. Um, let's see, does it say on the front here? Yeah, so Crispin Glover, Keanu Reeves, Iona Sky Leach, Roxana Zal, Daniel Roebuck, Joshua Miller, and obviously Dennis Miller. But he's not obviously a teenager in the film. But it follows this group of teenagers and their friend John. I don't know if you can see that on the back. That's John. So John kills his girlfriend. in a pretty violent way, and he leaves her body by the river's edge, hence the title. And he proceeds to not report anything to the police or anything, turn himself in, but instead he goes to school and brags about the murder. And so it's a really it's pretty gripping, to be honest. And I know that's a cliched word, but it's a very taut drama. The dynamic between the characters is really intense. Crispin Glover, who plays Lane again, is for me the highlight of the show. He's really like he's very concerned about John's well-being after he's committed this murder, and he doesn't want him to get in trouble, so he's trying to hide him out and protect him, and he's trying to get all the other kids to like go along with this plan of like hiding him or getting him out of town and like not telling the police or anybody who actually committed the murder. And so he's very animated, as Crispin Glover usually is in real life and in film. Um, but for me, he's the highlight. He drives a little Volkswagen Bug that's all souped up, and he drives around listening to Slayer and just being like a teenage dirtbag in the 80s. They're all kind of like metalhead type. Um, Keanu Reeves is the one that is like really struggling with it. He wants to go to the police. It's really weighing on his conscience, pardon me. And in the meantime, his younger brother Joshua John Miller, who plays Tim, he's a really bad little kid. Like he's probably about 10 or 12 in the film. He's really, really bad, and he hates Keanu Reeves for wanting to spill the beans about John and the murder. So he's like wanting to do some very violent things to Keanu Reeves' character, and so there's this sort of like circular tension between all of the characters where everyone's kind of like one's trying to keep the cool and one's wanting to tell the police and one's trying to hurt that person. Um, and Dennis Hopper, who plays Feck, is a drug dealer who lives in this kind of rickety old house with his girlfriend, who is a blow up doll. And he has also killed a girl or a woman long ago in the past. And so he's kind of like hiding out. I don't think he ever got caught, and he's hiding out from everybody. He doesn't want to get caught. So in later in the movie, John ends up going over to Feck's house. They have a bit of a heart to heart about, being these murderers and these awful people. And it's also a bit about the apathy of the violent teenager in the 80s, even though, I mean, I guess that's what society, I mean, in the 80s, I guess I grew up then, so I kind of know, but like for those of you who might be a little younger, they really tried to paint teenagers as like really horrible in the 80s, and especially with the heavy metal and the drugs and all that. It was like these kids are horrible, they're Satan worshipers, they're going to kill people and all this. So this kind of plays a bit, I wouldn't say it plays into the satanic panic thing, but it's definitely like kind of it's satanic panic adjacent. Let's just put it that way. So this is a really, really smart movie. The drama is really intense. There's some funny parts. I mean, Crispin Glover's character Lane is definitely like so over the top that you can't help but chuckle sometimes at some of the stuff he says and does. But um, I thought it was an excellent film, one of my all-time favorites from that era, and I would easily give it a 5 out of 5. I know I'm throwing a lot of 5 out of 5s out there lately, but again, I'm reviewing a lot of movies that are near and dear to my heart, and this one is definitely one of those films. This is the 2002, like I said, 2002 MGM edition. It doesn't have, yeah, the only special feature on it is the trailer. And so I always usually watch the trailer after I've watched the movie just to see how it compares. And honestly, the trailer for this movie makes it look like a teenage sex comedy. It really doesn't capture any of the seriousness or the drama of this film. So don't watch the trailer and think, oh, this is going to be just like Porky's or something. And it's like, no, this is very, very dark. Actually, could be a good company for Rumblefish, really. So if you've never seen this film, I would highly recommend it. I did notice on the front here that Siskel and Ebert said a very great film, 2 thumbs up. So you can actually, for the first time since I've been doing these reviews, I can actually tell you where to go watch it for free, and that's on the app Tubi, spelled Tubi. You can get it on your phone or your computer, or if you have like a Roku TV like I do, you can watch it on your TV. And it's completely free. There are commercials, but they're not too bad. And on that note, Tubi has so many great films. Not only like this kind of thing, but their horror selection is crazy. They have lots of underground horror and indie horror. Let's just pause to take a breather. You know what time it is. It's coffee time. President's Choice Canadian blend with a little bit of almond milk in my favorite doggo mug, courtesy of my Aunt Sheila, who gave me this mug back in the 90s. So what else can I say about this movie? It's emotional. There is the situation of murder in the film, which some people might find kind of troubling. It's pretty graphic in its depiction of like the body, and so if you're sensitive to that stuff, the body does make a reappearance in the film several times, in various decaying states. So if that kind of upsets you, you might want to look away. But I really wouldn't look away from this film because I think it's, again, just one of those classic 80s cult films, probably intended not to be a cult film, probably intended to be a serious examination of teenage life in the 80s for, your outcasts and your outsiders, but it did end up kind of falling into that cult category. So River's Edge, 1986, directed by Tim Hunter, highly recommend. Go check it out. If you want to see it again for free, you can check it out on Tubi. And I do occasionally see this out in the wild at thrift stores on DVD. I haven't seen it on VHS yet. I feel like that would probably be one I would have to, even though I'm kind of whittling down my VHS collection, I feel like that would be one I would like to have just for nostalgia's sake. But that's been Cult Movie Tuesdays right here on Night Owl Video. I'm not sure what's coming up later in the week, but I will post. You can find me on Instagram at Night Owl Video, and I will make some updates about what's coming up. And I feel like I had something picked out for, let me just look at my cult movie section just quickly. Oh yeah, I was thinking maybe I would do Jim Jarmusch's Ghost Dog next. So that's a potential film for next Tuesday, and again, another one of my cult favorites. So yeah, follow me on Instagram, Night Owl Video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Please leave comments below if you've seen any of these movies, what your thoughts are on them, or if you have any other great recommendations for cult movies that I should check out. So far, I think all of mine have been 80s, but obviously I'll get through my favorites, and then I'll start delving more into like maybe some of the horror ones and stuff like that. So thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you at the video store.